Welcome back into American Football Media Day. Just 15 miles southeast of the American headquarters here is SMU, and you're taking a look at the Boulevard. SMU is one university around the country that's been dedicating more resources to focus on student-athlete mental health, and one of the main additions that the Mustangs made is adding a Director of Mental Health Services, Dr. Allie Wade. She joins us here right now in the American studios. First off, Dr. Wade, thank you for joining us. Thank you for all that you do. What exactly is it that your job entails?
Sure. So it's myself and one other clinician on staff, and one of the main focuses of our role is to provide individual therapy services to our student athletes on campus. Another big component of our role is to provide consultative services to our sports medicine staff, so that's our athletic trainers and our physicians, as well as coaching staff, administrative staff, and academic staff. And then a third component of our role is to provide education and outreach to those same groups. So our student athletes, our coaches on campus, administrators, and academic staffs.
When you think about the past several years with COVID and the pressures of name, image, and likeness now that that's added, how has that really impacted your role in your student athletes?
So the short answer would be that the demand for our services, and specifically those kind of individual therapy services, has really increased. Just to back up a little bit, I mean, even prior to COVID, the numbers would show that 1 out of every 3 or 4 students on campus, including our athletes, would struggle with some form of mental health concern. Fast forward to the pandemic, I mean, there's studies that show as much of a doubling of rates of anxiety and depression. So you can imagine what that's done with just that many more people struggling. We're seeing a higher demand. At SMU, interestingly enough, in those very early months of the pandemic, so March, April, May of 2020, things actually got a little bit quiet, and I think that was honestly more of just the shock of what was setting in for everybody, seasons being ended, people going home. But then sure enough, as time went on, to end of summer, fall of 2020, we really started seeing a lot more people coming in, and honestly have seen just numbers continue to increase. You mentioned name, image, likeness. The one thing I'll say there, do not get me wrong, I think the ability to make a supplemental income is so important for our athletes and can alleviate a lot of financial stressors. And with that said, I think we have to be careful to not assume that, just because they're making a lot of money now or have the potential to, that means things are rainbows and butterflies. You mentioned the pressure. There's a lot of pressure there. It's kind of like having to run your own business, mm-hmm. right? While also being a student athlete with academic and athletic demands.
The landscape is changing. You've been at SMU for 7 years. In what ways have you really seen athletic departments dedicate more resources and step up to improve student athlete mental health, specifically here in Dallas?
Yeah, so here at SMU, we were so fortunate it was just me here for 6 years, and last year we added my colleague Alicia Money, so that was huge for us. And then just around the conference, when I first started, there was just myself and a few other institutions that had someone like myself, where dedicated to just athletics and just our student athletes, and have specific training and background experiences in that. Whereas now the majority of our schools in the American Conference have providers like myself. So we're seeing that more and more. And in addition, there's just more conversations like the one we're having, which is so important. Starting to destigmatize mental health and make it more talked about, more recognized. Initiatives like Powerful Minds have really taken off. So just seeing a lot more of that, which I think is so great.
What's next? What still needs to be done in order to continue breaking the stigma, ending the stigma? What can college athletic departments do to help that?
Yeah, great question. To me, there's really 3 important pieces. One is what we just touched on. So making sure we do have people like myself in positions at every school. Not every school out there has that. And it's really important to have someone with that unique training and experience, because our student athletes, it's a unique population with unique needs. So that's one thing. And then once you do have those people, continuing to assess the demand for services. It's not just that you have one person for 500 student athletes and you checked a box, right? We have to keep looking at, are we meeting the demand for services and staffing appropriately? Secondly, I think a lot has to do with our coaches. What kind of coaches are we hiring and retaining? Are we getting coaches that really see the student athlete as a whole person, as a human being that has a life and concerns outside of sport? Or are we, getting coaches that just look at the athlete as a means to the results that they want to get? So that's a big thing. And then thirdly, I think, what kind of culture are we creating in our athletic department as a whole? Is it one that further stigmatizes mental health, sees it as weakness or something you just get over? Or is it one that recognizes that these are real concerns, they're valid, and they're just as important as an orthopedic or physical illness or injury?
For a student athlete that might be watching this, what is the single biggest resource that you would recommend for someone that's struggling with depression or anxiety?
Great question. And so this one comes up a lot, and do not get me wrong, there's a lot of really helpful resources out there that are more kind of that self-help type apps, things like Headspace, Calm, and those are so important and very needed and necessary. But to answer your question, if it's somebody struggling with anxiety, depression, or if there's an eating disorder or something kind of larger going on, the most important thing is to get help, right? Use an analogy, if you had a heart condition, you wouldn't just use an app for that. You would see your cardiologist. And so same thing here, being able to reach out to the resources you have on campus and get that professional help. And if you don't know, who those people are, I always tell, our athletes, go to your athletic trainer. They're going to be the kind of front lines. They're going to know how to get you set up with those services. And so having the courage to do that.
Dr. Wade, thank you so much for everything that you do for the student athletes at SMU. Really appreciate this candid conversation and hope to have many more of these. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.